I know that CGI game trailers are pretty common by today's standards, but even so, the Assassin's Creed Valhalla trailer was epic, and it was of course the first time that we got to see the theme and name of the new game, and that was quickly followed by some more snippets at the Xbox Series X showcase today. It's Vikings then, and today I'm going to go into all of the details and information we know about the game so far and how it will play. And a big thanks to Ubisoft for sponsoring this video. Let's just rewind for a second though. The last Assassin's Creed game was Odyssey, and that was set in the years 431 to 422 BCE, and it told the story of the Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta. Valhalla, on the other hand, is set in 873 England. Your clan of Viking raiders are fleeing Norway in search of richer lands, and you end up in England when the land is divided into Saxon kingdoms. What does this mean for gameplay? Well, plenty of battles between Vikings and Saxons, of course. In the cinematic trailer, we also got to see King Alfred the Great, who became the King of Wessex in 871, and then the King of the Anglo-Saxons around the world in 886, sending his soldiers into battle against none other than the ferocious Vikings. He was actually a real historical figure. Wessex was the southernmost kingdom in England at the time, but England was incredibly fractured, with different kings ruling different kingdoms. And during the game, you'll experience not only Wessex, but Mercia, Northumbria and East Anglia. Presumably there's also going to be a period of the game set in Norway before you leave for pastures new. That would be cool. There's going to be a really interesting story here, I think, especially if you're into your history, or maybe you just like Vikings. In fact, narrative director Darby McDevitt has gone as far as to say that he doesn't think there's been a story structure like this in any game before. He said, "But I would even dare say it's quite unique for any game. I don't think people have experienced a story in quite this way. How we present it to you, how you consume it, it's very unique. It relied on being willing to experiment with a different way of presenting information to players and leading you through the game world." So who do you play as then? Well, in Valhalla, you play as a Viking called Eivor, and as always, they are the central character of the game. As we've come to expect of Assassin's Creed now, you can play Eivor as either male or female. You're going to be able to customize Eivor's appearance all the way down to tattoos and war paint too, something the Vikings took incredibly seriously. Not only that, but you're also able to customize your longboat, more on that in a bit. Magnus Brunn from The Last Kingdom fame on Netflix is the voice of the male Eivor, whereas Cecile Stenspiel gives us the voice of the female character. Both choices apparently are canon, but they're of course not going to spoil how they managed that trick until you play the game. Just like in other Assassin's Creed games, you'll also have a bird to accompany you. Although in the previous games it was an eagle, I think this time it's a raven. Lead producer Julien Leferrier has said that they've added in a lot more features for the raven this time around, and they want the player to use it as a reason to explore or re-explore areas so they're less reliant on the user interface. In fact, he said if you notice a distraction somewhere, it's probably because there's some content for the player to explore. Now, I mentioned earlier that you can customize your longboat, and the fact that there is naval travel in the game won't come as a big shock to Assassin's Creed fans, considering that the last game utilized that mechanic quite heavily, all the way down to full naval battles. It seems as though Valhalla won't exactly follow suit with that though, because it doesn't really fit in with the lore of the time. The lead producer said there's no sitting and firing cannons at other boats. Vikings just didn't do that. Instead, your longships act as your fastest means of travel through the English countryside along waterways, which were the main roads of the era. Instead, you'll use longboats to quickly reach and raid English forts before making a speedy getaway. And I imagine that might be disappointing to some, but it does make sense when it comes to the setting of the game. Okay then, so you've been out on your boat, you've raided some forts, killed a few people the Viking way. Where to now? Well, your settlement, of course, and this is new for Assassin's Creed. In Valhalla, your settlement will act as sort of a homestead. It's at the center of your quests and the center of the decisions that you make, and they say that they want players to see the consequences of their actions. So at your homestead, weddings will take place, relationships will be forged between clans, and you can build up your settlement as you progress through the game, adding in new areas and buildings, including a barracks, a tattoo parlor, and a blacksmith. You can even have Viking rap battles there, whatever that means. And from what the lead producer said, it sounds to me as though some of your gameplay decisions could impact your homestead either positively or negatively. That could be a lot to think about when making those important decisions. Now, one of the big moments in that first CGI trailer is the reveal of the hidden blade. Not very hidden in this case, but I wasn't expecting it. The hidden blade is a big signature of the Assassin's Creed games, and at this point Ivor has it strapped to his wrist quite openly. And the creative director of the game, Ashraf Ismail, has explained some of why that is. He said that your character in the game meets with some assassins, but he doesn't really know what that means, and he's then given a hidden blade early on in the game, but of course he won't go into any details as to how that happens to avoid spoilers. Fair enough. Ivor, being the Viking that he is, decided that this is just such a cool epic weapon, why would you hide it? So he just puts it on his wrist for everyone to see. It's a bit of a statement, I suppose. And when it comes to the weapons of Valhalla, it will let you dual wield almost anything in the game, and that's a big part of the combat apparently. The game wants you to pick certain weapons to work with, even to the point that you can equip 2 shields, if that's what you really want. Just go full Captain America. And as you would expect from a Viking, you'll also have a throwing axe. Expect the combat to be very brutal as well, because this is the Viking era after all, and Assassin's Creed games tend to be gory and aimed at adults. In fact, the developers have made a point in saying how visceral the combat is this time around, and I do think we can see that from the trailer that was released today. Expect dismemberments and even decapitations. And of course, when you're all worn out from battle, you'll want to put your feet up and relax, right? Well, Valhalla's got you covered. You can take part in hunting, drinking games, fishing, roll the dice to just pass the time. And about those rap battles, apparently that was a real thing too. It was more of a battle of insults from what I found online. And it's where the word flighting comes from in Old English, meaning to quarrel. That's a very British word though, so if some people don't know what quarrel means, it's basically to argue with someone. How exactly that's going to go down in the game, or exactly how funny it will be, remains to be seen, but I'm looking forward to finding out. Now, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is due for release towards the end of 2020. And this will be the first Assassin's Creed to launch on the next gen consoles, with it coming out on PS5, Xbox Series X, as well as PS4, Xbox One and PC. And apparently for Xbox it will also feature smart delivery, which means if you buy it on the Xbox One and then later upgrade to the Xbox Series X, you could play it there too without having to buy the game again. Wrapping things up, I think I'm quietly excited for this next Assassin's Creed game, mainly because the game took a year off, and that can only be a good thing. The first Assassin's Creed game released in 2007, and there's been a new game almost every year up until 2008. And I admit that yeah, some of those maybe weren't main titles, but for the most part these games are fairly annual. And so with the next generation of consoles looming and Ubisoft taking another year to produce the game, I'm expecting big things. Also, there's a lot of people working on this game, and I believe the studio that made Origins, which was one of my favourite Assassin's Creed games, has led the development on this one too. So could be a good time. With that said, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like. If you didn't, a dislike. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.